Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever part of the world and whatever time zone you're joining us from. Welcome! Welcome to the 2023 edition of the Black Consciousness Festival, where we're focusing on healing and reconnection for a second year. The Black Consciousness Festival is a global platform that connects people of African descent with each other by sharing and encouraging exchange through information, traditions, histories, intentions, traumas, celebrations, legacies, stories connecting to pride, power, and practice. Our inaugural year was in 2020, where we created a month of conversations and activities around topics of Black consciousness. In 2021, we had a few events: a youth festival, a weekend of conversations and reparations, and in November, conversations on shift, as we explored the many ways in which we as people of African descent shared and rebirthed elements of ourselves. In 2020, we focused on healing and reconnection for the first time, and we've decided to continue that theme this year because it's so important for our soul. The recordings of all of these conversations are available on our website, theblackconsciousnessfestival.com, and our YouTube channel. As you listen to the conversations, we encourage you to be kind to yourself. Pause, breathe consciously, move, and appreciate all that you are.
Hello, it's my honor to introduce another one of our amazing conversations. We've had, 1.5 days of amazing conversations so far. And this one, it's being led by Mr. Sean Samad, our communications and content director for the festival. The conversation is entitled Steps Toward Healing, Reflections on Participating in an Emotional Emancipation Circle. Sean, I remember my own experience of the circle, so I know it's going to be fun. Have a good conversation.
Thank you, Erica. Good night, everyone, wherever you're joining us from in the world, and thank you for joining us in this conversation. And tonight, I'm going to have three absolutely amazing individuals joining me. Tyker Philip, who is here in Trinidad and also on the board of directors of the festival. Dr. Reatha-Leigh Padmore, and Maria Prudhomme, all here in Trinidad as well. And welcome, ladies. Welcome to the conversation. Tonight, we're going to talk about something that's really special and dear to me called emotional emancipation circles. And why these three ladies are joining me tonight is because they had the pleasure to be involved in an emotional emancipation circle that we hosted earlier this year. Myself and two other facilitators, Laura Jackson out of Canada and Ayana Brown out of the United States, and it was done virtually. So tonight we're going to have a light-hearted discussion about their experiences and about what emotional emancipation circles are about in the first place, and how do we possibly see it as, the steps that we can take individually and collectively towards healing. So I will let the ladies off the bat, before I talk about emotional emancipation circles and what they are, if you want to tell the folks watching in a couple words, what was it like for you being a part of this process? Anybody, whoever wants to jump in.
All right. Good night. Good night, world. Hi, mommy. I just checked my emails. So we did the circle in July of this year. And I joined by invitation from Sean because he's a family friend of ours and really close to my brother. And he's just a genius and good people. Right? So I knew it would have been good. So I had to do my homework because I did not know what any history or anything at all behind it. So I did a little reading. It's like, yes, let me make some friends internationally, right? And after the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh gosh, this calls for you to be vulnerable. But for me, I have to say thank you, Sean. I appreciate the invitation, and the timing was just right, because in Trinidad we were just coming out of COVID in May, June, July. And I work as a medical doctor. So I had a slightly different experience during the pandemic, right? And I was absolutely exhausted. I was totally burnt out. And that timing here, and for me in 2023, was me resting, reflecting, and figuring out how I wanted to spend the next 2 decades of my career. And doing the Emotional Emancipation Circle was an opportunity of the reflection part of it, of really asking myself some hard questions, and now making plans with different foci in mind, as opposed to where I was in my 20s, now in my 40s. And it's really helped direct my ship differently, more intentionally. So that's my appreciation of you and what the Emotional Emancipation Circle has done for me.
Great. Thanks, Reatha. Either Maria or Tyker, who wants to join?
Maria is gonna go last. Okay. We know she don't have stage fright, but she's gonna keep it to herself until she gets called upon. And it's such a joy to share space with you ladies once more. So far, July, it feels like just the other day, but it also means that Tyker is clearly practicing. One of the P's that we have in Black Consciousness Festival is practice.
Yes.
Pride, power, practice. So to have it now as part of my daily practice in my theater career, my film career, as well as my life, I think is a testament to the impact that being a part of this circle has had on me. And the trauma looks different in our neck of the woods in relation to Laura and Ayana being in North America. Yeah. And so the conversations that we had where we were, cueing them into what's happening in Trinidad, and they were saying, oh, that's what's going on there. Okay, that's very interesting. And realizing that though we are in 3 separate places, because Ayana's in the US and Laura's in Canada, that we have so many similarities in the way that we respond to not just the trauma of being Black women in the space, but being folks who are of a certain socioeconomic background, people who have a certain level of education, folks who are actively working with children, because several of us in this space are teachers and working with young people.
Yeah.
And so being able to see in our students and our friends and our families how we could take this work that we did in Circle and then translate it into the spaces that we're in, and actively take action in our own lives, and then pass on what we learn to the people that we allow into our spaces. I think that was just mind-blowing. And every time we met, there was a sharing of knowledge. There was a sharing of, y'all, I did the exercise today and it helped me so much, and I've been breathing better, and I've been being more aware of my body, my breath, and the way that I respond in at work or with my children or with my family now. So I mean, yeah, beautiful experience that I hope it will be a facilitator, Sean. You had to tell me when we traded,
We're gonna talk. Thanks, Tyker. Maria, last but not least, how was it for you?
So I think Tyker and Reatha said so much that I don't need to say much. But but what I would say is as Reatha would have said with COVID, COVID adjusted our perspective a lot. So what happened for myself is the circle happened at a point in time where I needed to look at life with a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think COVID allowed me to feel certain things that I never felt before. So now the emotional emancipation gave me the perspective and the practices of psychotherapy that helped me um, go through not only just work but life with a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
And being an educator, I was able to even do not just practice with myself, but incorporate it with my students. So they
Right.
too now, they have been able to use the practices, they have been able to do the things, and it opened up their minds. And I remember vividly one of the sessions I did it with them, and they asked for it next time, so it
Yeah,
works on them. I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, let me just do this with them, to make up time. Let me
yeah,
see how they would, and to know that they enjoyed it, to know that they want more of it. So it's
yeah,
not just us that need it, and they need it too. So
yeah.
it was really good. And as Tyker said, we made it seemed like just the other day. But when I think about it, we're in December,
Yeah,
technically.
practically.
So,
Yes.
so yeah.
Thank you, folks. So, I mean, now that everybody, Tyker, Reatha-Leigh, and Maria have kind of spoken about the experience, some people might be wondering, what exactly is this all about? Yeah, what exactly are emotional emancipation circles? And so, I want to talk a little bit about that. Emotional emancipation circles are actually a product or an initiative of the Community Healing Network. And the Community Healing Network is a group that was developed in collaboration with the Association of Black Psychologists in the United States and North America. And so, we call them EECs, and EECs are an abbreviated version for Emotional Emancipation Circles. And what they're meant to be are self-help support groups designed to help heal and end the trauma caused by the root cause of anti-Black racism, right? The centuries-old lie of white superiority and Black inferiority. And EECs are supposed to be these very liberatory spaces in which Black people share stories to deepen our understandings of what we're worth, our relationships, and our communities. And together in these circles, we learn essential emotional wellness skills to help us be our best as individuals and as communities, as a people, right? And so the story behind how we came to emotional emancipation circles is really interesting. Erica, who introduced this conversation actually last year when the theme we came up with for last year was healing and reconnection, the same theme we have this year. Erica had encountered this organization and we started talking about it. And we did some more research on it and found, this program called Emotional Emancipation Circles. And actually, in last year's festival, we had contacted them and asked them to do a little demo of these circles, which they did. Jan, who's absolutely amazing and is the community manager for CHN, had done a conversation about circles last year. After that, Erica and I decided, well, we have to jump in the ring and try this thing out, right? So we did. And we did one of their intensive circles. So they have a regular circle, which was like what we did, all of us, which was, I think, 8 weeks long. And then they have an intensive circle, which is half the time. So it's 4 weeks, meeting twice a week. So, it's super intense. And that's what we had done with CHN. And after that, we had the opportunity they had a facilitator training session, which I attended and became certified as a trainer. And so one of the things you have to do after training is that you have to have a first circle. And so that was the circle that Tyker, Reatha-Leigh, and Maria participated in. Now, one of my motivations for becoming a facilitator in the first place was because of my own experience in the circle. And I could echo all of the things that have been said before about it. But for me, I think one of the biggest things for me was, for the first time, in my opinion and in my experience, this was a tool to help us kind of express and come to terms with a lot of the things that we go through on a day-to-day basis and sometimes are not able to put into words or not able to find the tools to deal with them or to express them. So one of the things I want to ask you guys is, out of all the things that you learned, so in emotional emancipation circles, we learn techniques to deal with, all of the traumas and all of the things that we go through on a daily basis. We learn information. It's a bunch of different learning processes. What did you learn? What was the one thing that you learned in emotional emancipation circles that was a game changer for you? Maria, you starting first since you went last.
Yes, I'm muted mic already. And I did. Listen, you say to be able to deal with humans a little bit better. That changed my life. Because I think, looks like this scream. Because I think at the point in time when I did the emotional emancipation, there was a lot of turmoil, not only within self, but within the work environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I, at that point in time, learned to better regulate me so that I could interact with others well. I must say, you see that butterfly? Butterflies are one of my favorite animals. I should say that's an insect. An insect. So like I look for butterflies everywhere. I adore them when I see them. So when I learned this exercise, okay, I will just be like this. Or just on my hands, I would do it to myself and that will calm me down. So that has tremendously helped me with not only myself, but with others, because I might have been wearing, I don't know what is written there, but I might have been wearing orange, So
we're happy that you are not wearing orange, Maria.
Correct. I know. So I must say that's the one thing that I really, really enjoyed. The ability to better manage self and to now, with regulating myself, be able to work with others. Wait, before I say anything else, I want to say one more. As well as learning to be able to recall the power from my ancestors. To be able, I remember when we did the ancestral calculation, and you realize, wait, these are all the people that would have contributed to me being here. I sort of feel powerful, like I'm a giant, I am this, So when I'm in a room now, or when I'm in a space, or even like generally anywhere I go now, it's not only me walking into that space. It's not just Maria. It's all Maria's ancestors are walking into this space. She's powerful. She's something, and that's the one thing I think that amazed my students a lot when I did it with them. When we did the ancestral calculation, it has all the people in the room with us. And I'm like, yes, all these people in the room with us. So that for me, those two things for me were really game changers in the way that I operate. So, yeah.
Great, thanks for that, Maria. And we'll actually talk about ancestral mathematics in a little bit. Tyker, what was the game changer for you?
We did an exercise. It was coming on to the end. It was either the second to last session or the last session. It was probably the second to last session, where we had these 5 things and we had to write it on a piece of paper. Write your name, write what you do, write something about yourself, 5 things. And then Diana was like, pick one and throw it away. And then she was like, okay, cool. Pick another one, throw it away. And everybody is like, what do you mean throw it away? And then you're left with this one thing that is supposed to symbolize or can symbolize what is at your core. These are the things that make up you as a human being, as a person, as somebody existing in the now. That is one of the hardest things I ever had to do, because how I could throw away my name? How? And then we went through, each of the moments, and everybody went, this is what I threw away and why, and this is what I held on to and why. And it was very interesting to see the perspectives of everyone who was there that evening, of this is why they decided that they would hold on to this specific element of themselves. They would hold on to their name, or they would hold on to something that makes them really special and unique. And that has stayed with me. I have my cards still. I have my cards like, how to throw any of these things away. And it put into perspective that all of these little elements that make us us are so important, and treasure these things that we seem like very nonchalant about all the things that exist.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
what are at the pick five? Pick five and then throw one away
Yeah.
was really, 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 really powerful. And I keep that with me, but also the reminder of to breathe,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I'll be on the computer and I'll be there and I'll just say, oh gosh, you haven't taken a deep breath in about 50 minutes. You need to do that. And to unfurl myself and to take a deep, meaningful breath
Mhm.
and just be like, okay, these are the things that I can see in my foreground, in my vision. Okay, cool. To be present. It's a beautiful reminder from EC every single day, because we're on these devices all the time.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thanks for that, Taika. And that exercise that you talk about, I use it in all of my classes. Like every class that I have, I just run that exercise right up, and it always moves people in a particular way. So thanks for bringing that up, recently.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for stealing all of my, top three. Um, but Taika, when just you describing that experience of throwing away, I remember how exposed I felt, how vulnerable I felt, how scared I felt as we throw away each one of those five. And for those of us who had the cameras on during that exercise, the muscles on people's face changed
Yeah.
as we went through the activity, and you saw all kind of emotions that you couldn't even describe
Mm-hmm.
in their facial expressions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it took me to a very Trinidadian experience where we know we've become very harsh with one another. This was happening even before the pandemic, right? Before we say good morning, we vex with the driver next to us who's trying to cut in. Before we would give a nod and a smile when you make eye contact in the traffic, you
Mm-hmm.
might scowl and look away and pretend not to have seen them, right? And coming out of that, I committed myself to be more kind, yes, to myself, but just to be more kind, to find a pleasant something to
Mm-hmm.
greet my colleagues, my co-workers, my clients, my patients with on a daily basis, because it really goes a long way to breaking the barriers, but also to acknowledge the human and the humanity in the other person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the ancestral mathematics was a win, a total win, because I'm a numbers girl, um, and and that was only 400 years worth of ancestry, right? And that same week, I'd done a workshop, and I tried to run the numbers, but I went all the way back to Columbus. I said, it's 525 years, 1498 since my boy land here. So if we make each generation 25 years, is 21 generations
Mm-hmm.
that came through. So I'm looking at a mixed audience of healthcare professionals, right, here in Trinidad. And I go, we are every hue and every color of the rainbow by virtue of our African ancestry, our colonialism, all the miscegenation, and everybody else who came and stayed, because people don't go back. They come to Trinidad and it's just stop and integrate, and it's bring their food and their clothes. And we say, yeah, come, we like you, we good, right? And it is so fantastically empowering. And then on the science side of it, because I went full throttle, Sean, full throttle.
Mm-hmm.
On the science side of it, you have the genetics
Yes.
and you have the epigenetics. So yes, you have your DNA. And we don't beat up if two dark-skinned people have a fair-skinned child with green eyes in Trinidad. That's a throwback, and we accept that, right?
Right.
Um, and that's the genetics. On the epigenetic side, you have the environmental influences that make you look or turn out the way that you look or turn out,
Mm-hmm.
right? But natural selection is exactly that: is survival of the fittest.
Mm-hmm.
And on the natural selection side of it, in the English-speaking Caribbean, Trinidad and Trinidadians are the most genetically mixed and the most genetically fit. All right, because we are here. So the fact that we are here makes us survivors, makes us fit, as in healthy fit, as in whether it's the intellectual fitness to survive an animal running after you, a crocodile chasing you down, or something like that.
Yes.
Or the health fitness to choose a healthy diet, to exercise regularly, to hydrate and rest your body. There's that fitness. But with every successive generation, there are these little changes in your genetic code that allows the next generation to be better survivors than the one before.
Okay.
All right. So by virtue of our very mixed ancestry here in Trinidad and Tobago, populations that do the inbreeding are less healthy and less fit. We are not inbreeding, we mix in every combination there is. But genetically, we are the most fit of the English-speaking Caribbean.
Okay.
And I worked out to that because it took me a few days to do the maths on that. And like Maria says, my shoulders are back, my chest is up, because I was like, I'm superior. I am actually biologically superior.
And so thanks for talking about that, because that is an interesting segue to go to, people might be wondering what are they talking about? What is this ancestral mathematics? So I'm going to read it out because I know the sharing images thing is not, it's not as easy as it seems. So I'll just read it out. So what exactly is ancestral mathematics? In order for us to be born, each of us needed 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 second great-grandparents, 32 third great-grandparents, 64 fourth great-grandparents, 128 fifth great-grandparents, 256 sixth great-grandparents, 512 seventh great-grandparents, 1,024 eighth great-grandparents, 2,048 ninth great-grandparents. So for us to be born today from 12 previous generations, we needed a total of 4,094 ancestors over the last 400 years. Think for a moment how many struggles, how many battles, how many difficulties, how much sadness, how much happiness, how many love stories, and how many expressions of hope for the future did our ancestors have to undergo for us to exist in this present moment. So folks, that's what ancestral mathematics is. And if we need 4,094 ancestors to be here today over the last 12 generations, between the 4 of us in this room, we're talking 16,136 ancestors, provided that none of us have some double ups, right? Which is a possibility. In Trinidad, anything is possible. We're talking over 16,000 ancestors standing behind the 4 of us to make us who we are today. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Very much so. And Sean, when we did our collaboration earlier this year with Africa Films, a film festival here, we talked about the fact that there's a possibility that maybe at least 16 of our ancestors bounce up each other.
Yeah.
Because we had a session and every single person in that session had family from Belmont.
Yes.
And so it was like, wait, your family from so and your family from so. Ooh. So I think that's so fascinating that we are here now in this timeline. But what about the 16 before?
Yes.
Perhaps they were also in the same spaces. They might have gone to the same shops, the same stores. They may have went to school together, socialized with each other. You never know. My great somebody could have been dating your great somebody at some point in time. You know, so
Correct.
sit down in a gallery talking, you know?
And not even imagining, what 12 generations or 6 generations later, that their descendants would meet each other in other ways as well. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing and empowering all at once. So somebody talked about the whole notion of being seen, and that's one of the things about EECs that also struck me. The way EEC starts with that Sawubona meditation. Yeah. What are some of the? Does anybody want to talk about how that Sawubona meditation made you feel the first time, or maybe the second time that you heard it? Because it's very particular to EECs. In fact, I think it was written by Dr. Shelley Harrell, I think her name is, specifically for EECs. How did that make you feel, that Sawubona meditation?
Sean, can you remind us and share with whoever's listening about the
Definitely.
meditation?
So the Sawubona meditation is usually the way we start all EECs, and it goes something like this. This is our chance to really see each other, to Sawubona, and the word Sawubona comes from a South African concept about seeing each other, because too often we see ourselves and each other through the lies, the biases, and stereotypes that take our humanity away in the eyes of others. And it's a relational experience, Sawubona, beneath, behind, and beyond appearances, to see, hear, and feel each other. And so the rest of the meditation, goes through those steps of, I see you, I hear you, and I feel you. What was it like the first time that was read to you in an EEC? Like Maria, drop her, she'll come back.
Welcome back, Maria. Yeah. So I, wow. So after the emotional emancipation circle, I began to be able to, oh boy, this is going to come out bad, but I'll try and explain afterwards that I was less able to tolerate people for longer because there are a lot of interactions in my workday as a frontline worker with members of the public, with colleagues and co-workers of different disciplines. It's a health center, but it's a big one. So staff-wise, it might be 50, 60 people, staff, and then the turnover is 60 to 100 people on a daily basis.
Right.
And so if I chose to make eye contact, because eye contact is intimate, even a cursory eye contact is intimate, which is probably why you don't really hold the gaze with the person in traffic next to you too long. It's like you're too early in the morning for that. Right? You stood up the window, put on the air condition strong, and look straight.
Correct.
Right. So initially I swung the other way, and I was looking straight, even in the corridors at work, because it was too draining to make eye contact and give a greeting, because there was that fleeting moment of intimacy, because the circle was making me aware and recognizing people.
Right.
And I knew that was my initial behavior change. I said, but that's not you. That can't work. That doesn't help win friends and build relationships with your colleagues and your co-workers and trust with the clients and patients you have. So I slowly started to make the eye contact again, and then it became more routine, not any less intimate, but less energy draining. But I don't know what I did other than practice it. And now I'm in a better place where I can look at you, and maybe I cheat a little bit. It's not direct eye contact. Maybe I look at your nose. So I'm looking close to your eyes, and maybe that's what's happening. So it's less energy draining. But when I am one-on-one with a patient, I don't hesitate to make eye contact anymore, because I want to get to where I need to get to with you quickly. I want to be able to not stare you down, not make you feel uncomfortable, but I want to read you and understand what you're not telling me, so that I can do enough maths to add up what you're telling me and what you're not telling me to come to assessment of things, to be able to meet you where you are. If it's tablets you need, it's tablets you need. But if it's just a conversation and somebody to listen to for 7.5 minutes, talk at me for 7.5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So that is how things changed with me over these last few months.
Okay. Thank you for that. Maria or Tyker, would it have any impact on you at all? They're thinking hard.
In my practice as a performer, as an actor, sorry to toot my own horn, but I have been always able to empathize with the characters that I have had the opportunity to play or to lend my instrument to. And so to be able to have that level of empathy has almost been, I guess, second nature for me as an actor. And so one, it's a great reminder, but it was really interesting to see everybody else's responses to that opening session, and also opening of the session, and also the closing of, because we would do a nice closing as well in terms of ending of the session, so that it was well bookended. And so it was really interesting to see folks kind of go like, what we in the first two sessions, like, what we doing here? I see you. What? And then by session number 3, session number 4, we're like, okay, yeah, relaxing into that new rhythm that that they've acquired now in the space of like, okay, yeah, this is what we do now.
Right.
We do
and not
this
being so uncomfortable being seen, right?
Yes. And it's really interesting because, I mean, we need more men to do these sessions, because it's a Bangladesh of women was in this session. Sean was the only man, right? And so it's very interesting to see women who have societally have to have our guards up at all times and be on defense mode, kind of release themselves into a session and into the space, and be willing to share themselves, share their experiences, their perspectives in a world where we always have to be on guard and like, okay, we don't know. And also in a space of, we are pitted against each other. Women are always pitted against each other to compete for whatever reason. But it was really, really interesting to get to witness us be open and honest and supportive. That sometimes people were like, I had to turn off my camera because there's a lot, guys. I'm overwhelmed, and I hope everybody's okay with that. I'm like, yeah, if you need to turn off your camera, turn off your camera. If you need to take a walk, drink some water, come back. And then by the middle of our sessions, we're like, yeah, we tune in to each other in such a way where Ayana was like, yep, we're going to take a 5 minutes now because we need to decompress. Play some samba. And so it was really beautiful to witness that.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up some really interesting things. And one, of course, is that one of the things that you talked about is that one of the most important parts of the EECs is this notion of confidentiality, that whatever you discuss in a circle, has to stay in the circle, to allow people to be vulnerable and to share some of their stories. But you said something that I want to hold on to and ask your takes on. You talked about the fact that you think that more men need to do the Emotional Emancipation Circle. Anybody? Why do you think that is? What was the rationale for that statement? Maria, Maria, you talking, but we're not hearing you.
You all not hearing me?
You're
Are
breaking
you
up a
hearing me
little
now?
bit.
You hear me?
No. While you try and work on that, anybody else want to jump in the ring with that question?
Right. So for purely selfish reasons, Maria, it's in and out.
Yeah, it's
So
cutting in and cutting out, yeah.
Okay, so
You'll
she'll
come
start
back.
again.
Mhm.
For purely selfish reasons. So Sean was my brother. And my brother, who's a big hardback married man with a child, remembers that when we were children, his big sister, his big sister, said to him, it is my responsibility to make you into a good quality husband for somebody. I don't remember using those words, but my brother does. Apart, he doesn't use the word trauma, but he just relates the story that
Right.
his big
Yeah.
sister said that. Okay. And I am a mother and I have one child and I have one son who's now a teenager.
Mhm.
And he and a man. Whether it was my brother or my son, I think I want to be able to create a man who could be a companion for women who has a breadth of vocabulary
Mhm.
and or help in the creation or growing a man who has a breadth of vocabulary that he's not afraid to use
Mm.
to identify and describe emotions.
Mm.
Because too many people, but yes, our Black men don't have the vocabulary and do not know how to self-reflect and therefore cannot self-regulate.
Mhm.
So it just all gets bundled up and then it explodes as anger.
Right.
And so often misconstrued, misinterpreted, misunderstood, and it's just a barrel of hurts that busts open.
Yeah. Yeah.
So men are not going to jump up and jump into an emotional emancipation circle voluntarily, right? But if, as adults, as aunties and uncles and mummies and daddies, our boy children in our lives, when there's a little episode, we catch that little episode and use that little episode to teach.
Mhm.
So let's talk about what happened. Let me help you to describe what you feel about what happened. And then let's learn some words to describe that feeling when you are 5 years old and 4 years old and 6 years old. Let me grow your vocabulary. Let me help you to discern mad from bad from sad.
Mhm.
And then you are a child who becomes an adolescent, who becomes a healthy young adult, who becomes a full-grown adult with a breadth of vocabulary and the ability to articulate feelings.
Mhm.
And when you start feeling feelings, well, we know what happens. It makes you
Yes.
vulnerable and afraid. But if you're practicing from a long time, you are less afraid.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Thanks, Reatha-Leigh. Maria, you're back with us?
I think I am.
Yes, we're
I?
hearing you. Yes, we're hearing you.
Wonderful. So for me, well, two things. When Sean sent the flyer and everything, and Sean was like, "Get some man," and I said to my friends, "They're like, yo, what craziness is this? You know, what madness circle? No, ma'am. You know, just their whole approach to it was like, not this. Maybe if I said let's go have a drink, you know, every Wednesday or the day we were having class, they might say yes. But I mean, they're like, no. So for me, I think this will help them, just like as she said just now. in terms of if we start with the younger ones, it would help them. But the thing about it is older ones and the men around now have adopted this sense of masculinity from previously before, either from absent or present absent men. There are men that are present, but they're not there. They're absent. So it's either they're absent, or they're present absent. And these things have impacted on the men we have today. And I think the circles will help them in terms of managing themselves better, and learn to be present. They're actually in a space, and be able to help others, because earlier on Tyker said all of us as women had to be so defensive. We're always up here, and I think it's because we tend to now have to play so many roles. So the thing about it is, I would really love to see it. For me, it will transform the classroom as a teacher. It will transform the classroom to see if fathers would really be part of emotional circles. Because I would see the difference. It would automatically overflow into the difference within their households.
Right.
The way the children act in class, the way they interact with one another, and I don't know how. I don't know if we have to call it by a
Well, I remember Maria, you saying when we had this discussion, I think, that that the name, maybe the branding of it would have to change, because once men hear emotional, they're like,
from the time they hear the word emotion, they're like, what? Girl, I'm not doing that. I don't know emotions as a man. And I'm like, Lord help us, please. So I think we would really have to change the name to something else for them to come to it, because the thing is, they need it, and they also need it for us women. Honestly, they need it for us women too, because it can't just be us alone.
Doing the work.
We need them to do it for us as well, and for our next 16 generations. We need it for that, because come on.
Tyker, you have anything to add on that?
Well, that's one of the questions that have to ask as a woman who is dating in this space, Have you been to therapy? Have you been to an EEC? These are the things we need to find out, I don't just need to know if he is a nice man and he spent plenty of money. Okay, great, that's lovely. But have you been to an EEC, right? Have you been worked? Do you have coping mechanisms? Do you have tools? This is what EEC is about,
Yes.
Gaining tools. Yes, you get insight on your existence in this space as a Black person, but also you get tools. That is what it's all about, guys. Getting tools to go through your day to day. Because many a time you want to yank somebody and go, ooh, run up their chest and slide on their back like they say long time, You want to fight, but you now have tools to go, let me take a deep breath, let me do a little butterfly exercise, let me play a little music, let me take a walk, let me take a stroll, let me rephrase what I'm trying to say. And these are tools that everybody should have in their arsenal, not just the woman. But I will say this, drop this fill bucket. So you get one person in this space to do it and to be really confident to share it.
Right.
And then one by one. I don't need to get a whole field, I just need one flower at a time.
Yeah. You're right. And that is my hope and my dream, is that, as you're saying, one by one, the more people that do emotional emancipation circles might be then inspired to become facilitators. And the more facilitators we have in the national spaces, the more circles we can have. And the ripples keep going and making an impact in the national space, because we absolutely need it. And so we're coming to the end of the conversation, and I want to to ask you guys one last question that's very much connected to what I was saying, Tyker, about the dealing with the tools, right? And what the tools really allow us to do. And so the overall kind of motto of Community Healing Network that gets translated to emotional emancipation circles is, this focus on this thing called the lie that we talk about, right? The lie that is the root cause of nearly all the challenges that we face as Black people. I want us to reflect a little bit on how that lie affected your life before EECs and how after doing the EEC you see it differently, or you deal with it differently, or you approach it differently. In other words, what difference has going through the EEC made for you interacting or dealing with that lie, the lie of white superiority and Black inferiority? I know that's a toughie.
Right. So when I was first presented in our circle, I have to confess, I didn't know what you were talking about.
Right.
So when our facilitators articulated and gave examples, I recognized what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought about it from my own experience, Trinidadian, born and bred, and living in Trinidad until age 15. And then as a family, we went abroad to England to live. And I remained in England for the rest of my studies and the early part of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And returned to Trinidad when I was, I think, 29 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know it was called a lie until you told me it was called a lie.
Interesting.
Right? Because in the first 15 years, the village raised me and my brother.
Good.
We knew intimately 2 generations above us, parents, grandparents, 3. There was a great granny as well for very early years that I knew of. But because my parents' generation spoke so present tense about that woman, I felt as if I know her.
Yes.
Right? And how to make Callaloo good. Right? So the village raised us, and the village was other Trinidadians who spent time in our home, and we spent time in their home. Other Trinidadians who were well educated, had primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Other Trinidadians who we called auntie and uncle, to whom or for whom we have the same level of respect as our own parents.
Right.
And I didn't know racism. I didn't see color. I spent 4 years at St. Joseph Convent, Port of Spain, and I left convent before I realized that there was colorism in convent. Right? And now it's laughable because it should have hit me in my face first day of Form 1, but it didn't. Right? Because I went into convent strong. They couldn't test me. I was hardworking. I got good grades. I could run fast, so I could represent my house on sports day too. So there wasn't a problem in any sphere of my school life.
Or so you thought.
Or so I thought until I left, and certain things were pointed out to me.
Right. Yes.
Right? So I didn't know that there was a lie until we sat down again. There's this transition that happens in your early 40s, and you think, Father Jesus, wow, right? This is real adulting. I think real adulting happens in your early 40s. It didn't happen in my 20s or my 30s. So the rubber hit the road these last few years, right? And the emotional emancipation circle was definitely part of that. But I still believe that in Trinidad and Tobago, because we've grown up with leaders of color, that is our normal. In the West Indies, we have leaders of color. That is our normal. When I think of all of them from, I'm seeing their faces, but not remembering their names. right? But the early, the Eric Williams generation of West Indian leaders who took us from colonialism into independence. Perhaps we memorialize them and we glamorize what they did, but they did it, right? And the lie came for me as a young adult living outside of Trinidad, where yes, people
So
who
you
look like
didn't,
me were in the minority.
right? So you don't think that you experienced or confronted the lie even in your childhood or in your,
I didn't see it,
you didn't
Sean.
recognize it.
I
You
did
didn't
not recognize it.
Right. That's interesting because I think that's the case for many people.
I did not. But it didn't. I didn't feel slighted. I didn't feel inferior. I didn't feel like I
And you
couldn't.
didn't feel that logic operating in the society, the logic of, giving privilege to certain groups over others because of, features or color, or it didn't
I
affect
didn't.
you as much as others.
I
Okay.
didn't notice.
Right. That's interesting.
I
I
did
wonder
not.
if Tyker or Maria had different kinds of experiences.
Funny enough, and it's only when we started doing, I noticed it, but I didn't pay much of mind to it initially, like when I was growing up. But when we started to do emotional emancipation circles, I realized I was told several lies. One that my grandmother would tell me is, she's like, you have to learn how to sit on the fence when you go in government offices. And I'm like, sit on the fence? What do you mean? Depending on the doctor that you have, let's just say if it's a doctor or it's a whoever you're dealing with at the point in time, you have to know if you're mixed, you have to know if you're East Indian, or you have to know if you're Negro. So you know how to talk, how to behave to get proper service. And it's only when I actually experienced it for myself, both me and my sister, although we're what we it's called red, she's fairer than me. And she has green eyes, she has blonde hair. We have the same parents, right? And we went to the ID card office, and the lady dealing with me dealt with me excellent. But when it came to deal with my sister, she got a whole different person. And then I realized, oh, that's what Grandma was talking about. That's how you have to sit on the fence. And to me,
sit on the fence if you can, if you're able to, because not everybody is able to sit on the fence. Right.
And your car sit on the fence too long is hurt.
Your offense is look.
Offense is tricky. Yes.
So, and I'm saying to myself, it shouldn't be a matter of sitting on the fence. Why should I have to be taught to sit on a fence? Why serving others isn't something that we do generally? Treating others right isn't something we do generally. Why must it be that I have to sit on the fence? And to my knowledge, I'm supposing should have taught all her children this, to sit on the fence, and then now your children teach. It's just passed on. It's a lot that just continues to pass on. And I'm like, nobody needs to sit on a fence here. Like, could we sit on a wall? Could we not even sit? Please?
Why should you have to sit anywhere? Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that really happened, along with numerous other things. But I think that's one that really, up to this day, she still says it.
Tyker, what's your take on that? How has the lie, manifested for you?
Well, I know that EC helped me articulate what the lies are better. Right. So I'm better able to put into words. That is insert expletive here, That is nonsense, that is garbage, But I have had the fortune and the privilege to grow up in a family, as Rita was talking about earlier. I grew up in a Trinidadian family, an East Indian family. I have people who look like they walk off the Mayflower, you know. There's a plethora of colors, shades, sizes, everything in my family. So I had that privilege growing up. But I grew up in Belmont, which has one of our former prime ministers called a hot spot in 2012. So I, as the Americans would say, I grew up on both sides of the track because I have family in PT Valley and Diego Martin. You know, for international viewers, that's like Miami Beach. You know, the upper echelon of society. And I'm going to school in the hood. My grandmother is a very stately woman. You know, she looks very English in her the way that she'd carry herself, and she'd float, and she speaks, you know, the Queen's English and so forth. And of my three cousins that I grew up with, as Maria so graciously put it, you know, I would be termed a red woman in the place, even though I consider myself brown. But I am the darkest in complexion of the three grandchildren that my grandmother had. So I was colorblind, you know, very similar to our other panelists tonight. Very colorblind. Everybody is everybody, and da, 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 da. Only when it clicked for me in my early 20s of like my cousins and I were going somewhere and they were standing together and I sort of went off to get a drink and came back and this man was talking to them and he was like, "This is all your friend?" Excuse? Because we all have the same face, so how I come to be their friend? Oh, well, I'm an actress. I could have put on an accent, you know. I'm not from here. I'm from England. You know? Now, I'm visiting. Yeah, I'm visiting. I'm not from here, you know, and I'm here on vacation. Oh, yes. He go, "Oh, you related to them?" Yep, I'm their family, and it was like, "Where's boy?" I really look different in the what do you call this what is when the boss say when he was a teenager boy, 50 something degrees in the shade, 51 degrees in the shade. Ooh, all right, very interesting, very interesting. And then I have benefited, I will admit to benefiting from light skin privilege, as they call it in the United States. Of when I go to Tobago, you're getting things done with the swiftness. Right? You're getting things done because you don't look Tobagonian, you don't sound like you're from here because you speak properly in inverted commas. And people be like, "You from Trinidad?" "Yes, I'm from here." "So how you talking like that?" Like what? Like, you know? So it's very much ingrained in our society, and so to kind of be able to articulate, I am not given into the lie that is X, Y, and Z, and to be able to say it out loud and to be able to communicate it to others, and also be able to tie it back into the study of Pan-Africanism, because this whole diaspora wars thing is very real when it comes to predominantly white spaces. All are we here struggling? But you want to talk about Africa versus Caribbean versus Latin America, it's something else. So to be able to articulate what the lies are, very important and essential, and EECs have definitely lent to being able to do that immensely. I could talk everybody ear off tonight, but you know, we're already here now.
You know what you said there, I think, is one of the biggest contributions of the EEC, that, you know, coming from the Caribbean space, because people of European descent are not a big majority and they're not in our face every day. It is sometimes possible to think that we don't have to contend with the same lie, right? With that lie of black inferiority and white superiority. But when when you start to participate in the EECs, you start to reflect and tell each other stories, and think about the experiences that you've had in your own life and hear other people talk about their lives. We start to realize that our society continues to function. It was founded on this lie.
I was just about to say, we live in a society that the constitution of the place is not. Somebody play a video. In that's added with a moment. I love it. It's
Yes.
beautiful, very very powerful. But the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago is not ours. It is something we borrow from a system that is inherently racist, that is inherently anti-black.
Mm-hmm.
It is not for us.
Correct.
And we in 2023, we have minimal constitutional reform. The society functions in the system is not for us. The banking system, the education system, the health system, the law and order, it's not built for the majority that exists in this space.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just anti-black, it's also anti-woman.
Say it to them in the back because I cannot hear you clearly.
It was made by fat white men for other fat white men.
Y'all not easy. All not easy.
If I had a bell, I ring it, Sean. Clackang kanky tang, clackang kanky tang.
You might have to edit that little piece. That was a little bit harsh.
But I think,
a live video.
Yeah, you can't edit a live video. But I think that point, is one of the most important points. That for people in the Caribbean who might be listening to this and wondering, well, what had to do with us? Because, we have black leaders or, leaders of color. We have, the majority of the people in the space look like us. So what this racism thing is about and what I have to do with us. And I think it's really important that we stop and we do the work to realize that the systems that we live in, whether it's the education system, all the systems that you talk about, right? But the structures that we live in were created by this lie and continue up until this moment to perpetuate these lies in our, and we perpetuate them too because of course we are programmed, we are socialized in this space. And so some of the things that Maria talked about, that her grandmother spoke about, and many of the things that we all talked about tonight are byproducts of this lie, byproducts of this programming that at the end of the day does not serve us, does not serve our worth, because we think less of ourselves and we elevate the image and the values and the attitudes and behaviors of another group that has nothing to do with us. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So final words, ladies. If a friend come and tell you, I hear about this EEC thing, I should do it, I shouldn't do it, why you think I should do the EECs? What would you say to them?
Give me an email, sign up and start the class. I have nothing again to say. What again I must have to say? You want to be able to survive in this day and age, help others, help your generations, your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren. We're already struggling. Just sign up for my place. Don't ask anything else. The same way as I'm quick to play mass, to take a loan, sign up and just start the class. That's it. You have nothing else that we could say that, try to explain it or no. We be click. Listen, Republic Bank was giving away loans. You know what I'm saying up? Just sign up for the class the same way you sign up for the loans to be able to help your generations to come. Yeah, and the others to come. So you will know the practices, you'll teach the practices, your children embody it, it'll become part of them, they will teach their friends, and then 15 years down the road, they're doing a whole session like this, and it's because you sign up.
Right. So Maria talking about legacy and the ability to cope and, give a tangible legacy to generations to come. Tyker and Reatha-Leigh, what would you say to your friends?
I mean, how to improve on what Maria said, but that is it there. That is, she said it all. I mean, as I said, if somebody's looking to date you, to marry a child, etc., gotta do the EECs. Did you do the EECs? I don't care about your CXCs and your GCSE and your CAPE. Did you do the EECs? Did you? Let's get it going. Let's do it.
So you see the EECs almost as like a pre-qualifier.
Yes.
Look,
Yes.
on this rounds, we can't be dealing with emotionally unintelligent people. Right? And EEC is a step closer to developing your emotional intelligence. And the world needs emotionally intelligent people to a high degree. We need them in quantity and quality.
Right. So developing that emotional intelligence is a step towards healing, basically. That's what you're saying. Nice. Nice. Ladies, it was a pleasure having you all on. Thank you for your time and your energy. And I'm happy to hear that the EEC's made a difference in your life and that it sounds like you all are now brand ambassadors for EEC, right? So I can send your names up to CH and they'll be in touch. Just joking. But thank you once again for being a part of the conversation and for joining the Black Consciousness Festival. And folks, we have more great conversations coming up tomorrow at 11 a.m. in Trinidad, 5 p.m. in Trinidad, and 8 p.m. again tomorrow. So check our schedule on our website or on our Instagram profile, all the Black Consciousness Festival. Thanks again.